by the way, are like
So
the
for this
Coles.
mic, we're gonna want to stay nice and close.
They're pretty cool.
Okay, like
About
this?
7 of them
fingers
now.
sideways
People
to
just
the
get
side.
right to work for us.
Okay.
And then we have to get the Facebook groups going in that same vein, which is getting right to work for us. And then the This Week in Startup / Angel mailing list. We have to keep growing.
Yeah.
That's where it turns out. I think the top. I've been studying the top podcasts. And it's the ones with the large email lists or large websites. So the reason why Tim Ferriss does so well is he's got so many emails that he just gets all these people when he sends that email clicking on iTunes or whatever. And the reason why.
Dad, we're gonna have to get some levels from you. So just tell me about yourself. What did you have for breakfast?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. What did I have for breakfast?
You might have skipped it.
I was in Jackson Hole.
You were in Jackson Hole this morning?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Welcome home.
Might you have an iPhone charger
Yes.
that I could figure out somehow?
We have a. Let's go over here. Jake, you had an iPhone charger back there?
He was saying he did not.
Ask I'll ask Jessica. Yeah, I'll ask her.
Sorry, I'm typically organized, but because I was coming in from Jackson Hole, and that's why I rescheduled from yesterday to today.
I just dumped a bunch of ketchup on my skirt, which is
Oh.
why I look like I just
Oh, okay.
was like wrestled in the street or something.
And just one other question. Is there a cup of water?
Oh
or
yeah, let
something?
me grab you some water. Is that
Wonderful,
too much
Jackie.
coffee or tea, or
No,
what's
thank
the
you.
also just water?
All good.
Take all the. We have hipster coffee. You can get a matcha latte, chai latte. Yeah, that stuff is good too.
If I have more than 2 coffees a day, it's hard to get to sleep.
You're not part of the camp Cirque Gigante.
I was not part of that camp. No. Cirque
Are we
Cirque du
live streaming,
Chatin.
by the way?
We're not.
Oh,
Are we live right now?
okay. We are live.
Oh, hello.
I had like a really weird experience.
It was so dusty in there.
It was so dusty I couldn't even be in there.
It freaked me out.
It
like
freaked
I
me
was
out.
like
I had to get out immediately.
I was like, it was quite freaky in there.
That was bad. And then I tried to use the bathroom, and there were 3 paid actors at the bathrooms. I'm
Oh.
assuming paid,
To freak you out?
who were going, "Oh, sir, kind sir, are you part of the camp?" And I was like, "No, guess the ex-famous affluent business person who was in the camp. Oh, these bathrooms are for guests of the camp." And I said, "Oh, do you have the code?" And they said, "Yes, but you're not part of the camp." And I said, "You can give me the code, or I'm going to piss on the door." And the person was like, "Oh," and the person behind me recognized me and goes, "That's Jason Calcanis. It's pretty cool that he's at your party. You should let him take a leak."
Oh, that's nice.
And I thought that was very kind of them. And then I went in and I then proceeded to take a huge shit. No, I didn't.
Oh.
And I just
Oh,
took it.
on
No, I
Facebook
took
Live.
a leak. But then I talked to the people who were there, and I was like, "Listen, X other famous person, like if you have a party, it's at Burning Man, so they have a door policy.
Right.
So you can't have a door policy at Burning Man. You can't have somebody at the door.
Right.
That just looks really out of context. Like that's not radically open." And they're like, "Well, we close the door only for dinner." And I'm like, that's exactly the opposite point of Burning Man. Like if you're having dinner at Burning Man and somebody stumbles in and needs food, you give them food.
Yes.
That's how Burning Man works. Like you guys are going to get white oceaned, right? The white ocean was the one that got glued last year.
Yes. Yeah. My understanding is Cirque, this was their last year anyway.
Yeah, this is the last year anyway. Because I think it was becoming like peak douchey.
I don't know.
I mean, I appreciate they invited me over. It was very kind. And it was beautifully set up with the exception of the dust. But I was just like, this is worse than going to a club in Hollywood.
It was really, yeah.
I was
It
like,
was so dusty.
but going to a
it was
club in
weird.
Hollywood, they would let you use the bathroom. I was just like,
Yes.
are you guys out of your mind? And then I went to the
Yes.
bathroom. I was like, this is not like the Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
I just need to take a leak. I mean, it's not exactly.
Oh, beautiful.
Ah.
Thank you.
The USB.
Wonderful. Thank you very
Of
much.
course. Do you need
That's
any-
Jess, my assistant.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, I'm
It's Dave
Dave
Samuels,
Samuels.
one of my
Nice to meet you
old
too.
friends. I'll get it to hip
It's
chat.
gonna go boom, boom. Let me try. Oh, I felt it. Oops. There it
There you
is.
go.
Thank you.
Great. Do you need anything to drink?
Love some water by chance.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I had such a good time. I only went for 50 hours. Which
No, but that's how you do it. I tell friends to just go for 48. So you did 50.
Yeah, I did 50. I want to go
Yeah.
for 3 days next year. How you go for 3? You go for the whole week.
I went for too long this time. So
You went
this
10 days?
time I was 12 days.
That's too long.
It was too long.
That's 3 or 4 days too long.
I built this art car that took
I
5
saw it.
days of my time.
Yeah.
The Smile High. We flew it right in front of the Cirque
Yeah.
de Chaton.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure. I said you didn't want drinks, but I didn't hear that.
And then I had a totally different experience when I went to Robot Heart. I was talking to this guy, and it turns out he's like the guy who runs the camp or something, Jean.
Yes, I don't know him very well.
I don't know him, but I just happened to run into him. So my friend and I were talking to him, and he's telling us how they built the art car, and he's showing us pictures of 15,000 people there at sunrise. He said, "This is 15,000 people." I'm like, I don't doubt you. That is like a legitimate large number of people.
Robot Heart defined that whole art car genre.
Yeah.
Like they basically, when
The
he
mine
came
car,
out,
yeah.
like now everybody,
One's up
wants to yeah. I mean, he basically increased the competition, and he's
Right.
like, wow, this is what you can do in an art car. And then of course, without Robot Heart, Mayan Warrior just probably doesn't come to existence.
No, and Mayan Warrior is insane.
It is
That's
quite insane.
$10 or $15 million car.
It's an amazing piece of art.
I heard like the first one was just like $2 million, but then they put $5 million in lasers on the top. And when I was there and I saw the lasers last year, you could see them across the whole playa.
It's pretty amazing what they built.
And now the Mayan Warrior car is going everywhere. Like it's at
It
all
is
different
going, yeah.
festivals.
It's
And
going.
I heard there's a second one.
Well, I mean, just on that model, basically the whole notion of the art car has become more of a business because you have all these festivals. Life is Beautiful next week with Tony Hsieh
I'm going. Are
in
you going?
Vegas. I'm supposed to go. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to go, but he
I'm
he
staying. I
pays a
have
lot of. Are you in an
Airstream.
Airstream?
If you need to crash, you can crash my Airstream. I'm in HipChat. I'm way ahead of you, Jackie.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want.
I said I had an Airstream, but then I felt bad and I said, Tony, give it to some other lucky contestant.
What?
You
We
know,
all want
just
you
life
there.
is busy. Life is busy, but life is beautiful. So I need to go.
Oh, I see. You got to get work done.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're. Yeah, I know what's going on. I know. I know what we all.
Are you
go-
think you're going to do? You can't do 3 days. You're going to do the weekend.
I'm going out Friday and coming back Sunday.
Awesome. Okay.
I think that's the right window after just getting through Burning Man. It's,
Yeah.
I mean, I got kids too. You know, I got young kids.
Yeah.
It's not like they have something to do for the weekend. Like,
You're working on number 4.
no,
Oh,
that's not gonna.
really, Jason?
No.
Oh,
Oh no. How many you
No.
have? 4?
yes.
4's too much.
I will.
Three.
Say, you know what,
We thought we
Jason?
were gonna
I
have
agree.
2.
I concur.
We got
4's
surprised
a
with
lot.
3.
4 is a lot.
4, you gotta get like. I mean, everything changes. The scale of everything changes.
Yes. Yeah.
Cars, vans, flying, everything changes. I mean, you're talking about bringing like a lot of people places, and then nannies and
Yes.
have nannies. Crazy. All right, you crazy people in there. Hey, Jackie, we're gonna use this for TWiST and for Angel, or I think it's better for Angel and then put it on TWiST as well, because Dave writes 250K checks. So it's a radio show with cameras. You basically can ignore the cameras, just 2 dudes having a conversation. And yeah, currency of the realm is honesty and candidness. So
Wonderful.
founders love that. We love it. They all love it. Hey everybody, it's another episode of our newest podcast, Angel, and This Week in Startups. We didn't candidly know where to put this one. All right, you ready? Okay.
Different T-shirts for different episodes.
I started wearing the Uber one because, when the team is getting beat up and, I kind of think that's when it's our job to show, like, our support.
Yeah,
It's very easy to be, like, a front runner, and then,
I like it.
I'm trying to be very public in my support of the new guy and resolution of differences.
Yes.
If people on the board have differences, we're solving them efficiently.
Yes.
Mediation.
Yes. Keeping it out of the court system.
Yeah, this is not a good situation. It's a conundrum. I'm very good friends with Travis, obviously. I'm very good friends with Bill Gurley. I'm very good friends with Shervin. I'm good friends with Ariana Huffington. And it's like to see everybody fighting in the greatest success ever of any of our careers. It's like, what?
It is crazy. When I heard when somebody said, "Yeah, Benchmark's suing Calacanis," I'm like, "Are you serious?"
Kalanick.
Kalanick, sorry.
Yeah.
Kalanick.
Bill Gurley's nuts. People do say that all the time. They're like, "Oh yeah, no, Travis Calacanis is the CEO." And
Oh,
I'm like,
Travis Calacanis, you're right.
or Jason Kalanick. I was like, no, not exactly. Both sound Greek, but
Yes.
only one is. All right, you ready, guys, gals? Okay, when you're ready. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis. We host this show twice a week, 100 times a year, and we're up to about 800 episodes. It is the great joy of my life to do this program because meeting with great investors, great entrepreneurs, and people who want to change the world and make it a little bit better through this crazy capitalism entrepreneurialism model that we have here in America and spreading around the world quite nicely, has led to some of the great resolutions of problems we have, and candidly, a lot of abundance and life getting much better for the majority of people. Still a lot of work to go, but I've heard some people recently complain about the financial structure and venture capital and how it all works. I think we can always get better, but let's not forget that a lot of the great companies that were built in the history of humanity is solving some of the greatest problems that we face, whether it's global warming, communications, transportation, housing. These things are not solved by governments. They're solved in large part by entrepreneurs who are crazy enough to take on the world. And a key part of that process is the funding of those companies. So while you can be critical of capitalism, venture capital, angel investing, and the whole system that we've built up, and all the incredible companies it's built, it is flawed. It's broken sometimes, but it's the best system ever created, and it's why the United States, on a GDP basis and on an influence basis, outpaces any other country in the world and continues to do so, even though we only have 300 million people here, a fraction of what some other countries have. Now, is it going to stay that way? Obviously not, but it is amazing to me every day to wake up and see the scale of companies here in Silicon Valley and the impact they're having on the world. My guest today, Dave Samuel, has played a large part in that. He's been an entrepreneur, he's been an investor, and he operates in the most critical early stage of venture capital, an area where people write $250,000 to $1 million checks. That area has been largely abandoned by traditional VCs who are taking less risk, moving downstream, and saying, come to me when your company has 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 million dollars in reoccurring revenue that we can predict easily, and then we'll overpay and take out all the risk taking. But some of us, we like to operate in the difficult, hard area, what I like to call the Goldilocks zone, because it is an opportunity, not too hot, not too cold. The company may be launched, but the company may not have hit scale yet. That's where Dave Samuel seems to operate. And he'll correct me if I'm wrong, but he is the co-founder of Freestyle Capital, a personal friend of mine and somebody I admire very much. All the founders I send to him come back uniformly with a, wow, that guy is smart, and he gave me his time and his energy. And that's really what it's about, is doing the work. And I think a lot of times people in our business forget that. So with that, I'll welcome Dave Samuel, finally,
Thanks,
to
Jason.
the program.
I know we've been talking about this for a while.
I know, it's crazy. You know, I just all of a sudden have these like moments where I'm like, Dave hasn't been on the program, or this other person I've known for 10 years or 20 years hasn't been on the program. I'm like, we got to get this one done.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, you know, it's been a long time. Now, we met back when you were doing something called Spinner,
Yes.
and you had
We both sold businesses
to AOL.
to AOL.
Yeah, and back then, selling a business to AOL or a Yahoo was considered, for our generation of entrepreneurs, we're like the Gen Xers, to sell a company for $20, $30, $40 million was kind of the goal.
Yes. Yeah.
What did Spinner sell for back then?
We sold for 320.
$320 million.
Yeah,
Incredible.
we were lucky.
That was one of the biggest acquisitions of that time. 10 times bigger than Weblogs Inc., which I sold. That's 15 times bigger than Flickr or Delicious, which I think were in the 20 million, or TechCrunch, or any of these things that sold in that sort of cohort. You were a little bit before us.
Yeah, we were lucky. That was May of '99.
What did Spinner do, and why was it so valuable to AOL?
So we launched the first internet radio service back on April 1st, 1996. And really the service has many similarities to Pandora today. And so we just had internet radio. And you jump forward to 99, and AOL was looking for a radio play. We had launched Yahoo Radio. And when Corp Dev was like, wait, we can buy this company and we can basically set Yahoo back also, because there's lots of kind of geostrategic things going on, the stars align. Basically, Josh and I wanted to, back then you could take companies public, and we had many friends. If you look at even David Goldberg with Launch Media, he took the company public, but man, it was a tough slog once you went public, because after 2000, it was just difficult. So we were fortunate.
When the market crashed.
Market crashed.
Some people who are entrepreneurs today.
Yes, don't remember that.
They were 10 years old. The
Maybe
companies
not
were
even.
investing in it. It's weird to get old, isn't it, sometimes?
Yes, yeah.
You have to explain to people what the dot-com era was.
Yes, and so we thankfully sold the business, and I think AOL needed a radio play, and we were in the right place to make that happen.
And at that time, how much revenue did you have, and how big was AOL at the time? Yeah,
I mean, basically our annual revenue for probably our lifetime annual revenue was maybe $1.5 million. And so I remember when we were negotiating with Steve Case, we were trying to figure out, should we go with like just a round number, or should we have some like calculated number of the number of users we have? And we actually ended up coming up with kind of this weird calculation. And so we basically said, 366,500,000. And Steve Case came back, how about 320? And we said, okay. And we just shook hands on that. And it's just crazy how you can make a deal like that so quickly.
At the time, AOL was worth 20 billion, 30 billion.
I should know the answer to that, but I got to believe
it was tens of billions. Even more.
I mean, I think it was even more than that.
50 maybe.
Because they did the merger at the peak, basically, in January of 2000 with Time Warner.
And they were 50-50.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking the combined entity was north of 100 billion.
Yeah, so it's 50, I think, was probably the number. And they had 35 million subscribers, paying at the time, I believe, $25 or $30 a month. So that's what people don't remember about that moment in the internet, is that AOL was $30 a month.
Right.
35 million members. You're talking they were printing $1 billion a month.
It was a big machine.
Plus advertising. I mean, it was incredible. And when you put something up on there, they could literally have all 30 million people see it. In the way that these new walled gardens, Facebook and YouTube, can do that same thing.
Yes. Yeah.
At an even bigger scale.
Yeah.
At some point, you decided, hey, I want to be an investor, or did that just happen, or did you stumble into it? I never got the story of how you decided to start a fund and do Freestyle and be an investor.
So I had a few other entrepreneurial startups, and so
Grouper, I remember.
Grouper, which became Crackle, and Sony acquired that.
Yep.
That was internet video. And then, I don't know if you've heard me talk about high-tech toilet seats. But,
oh, for sure.
We're number one in the number two business, Brondell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which Mark Cuban was an investor in.
Mark Cuban is an investor. Yeah.
Yeah,
we share that also.
Yeah. Mark was in.
Well, no, I mean, just you had Mark as an investor.
Yeah, he owned 15% of Weblogs.
So do I. And so then
Mark's a great partner to have. You enjoyed having him as an investor?
It's honestly, I never understand how Mark is so connected. Like, if you were to text him a question right now, I swear he could probably get back to you very quickly.
It would be under 5 minutes, and sometimes it would be 30 seconds.
I know. I'm like, does he have monkeys doing all this in the background?
No, because he puts a space after the end of a sentence and then puts a period. And I was like, Mark, the period goes at the end of the word. He would always put a space and an exclamation point in his blog posts when he was doing Blog Maverick, which we set up for our software.
Yeah.
And I would go in and I'd fix it. And he goes, don't fix that stuff because I like it to be like raw, like people know it's for me. It was actually in a very Trumpian kind of,
Interesting.
I want to talk directly.
Interesting.
And when he didn't re-sign Steve Nash, he went directly to the public and wrote his own blog post in the same way that 10 years later, like LeBron James is like, I'm going to make my own decision, or I'm going to announce in my own article, in my own publication. Now all the celebrities make their own publications.
Right.
And just disintermediate the media. He really pioneered that in sports specifically.
It's
pretty
very cool.
phasing.
Well, I just on a side note with Mark Cuban, I met him for the first time at NAB, which was in April of
National Association of Broadcasters.
It's a big conference. TV. April of 1996.
TV shows get licensed.
And he had what was called AudioNet. And I had Spinner used to be called the DJ, and basically we met at NAB, and he tried to acquire my company back in 1996.
Incredible.
And then I remember going by his office, which was, he had basically a basketball court that was connected to his like living area. And basically he had the office in the office in the living room area. And then his server farm was in the basketball court. And I remember visiting that in 1996. And
like,
he was ahead of his
I hope
time.
the basketball doesn't hit the servers.
It all worked out. I mean, we look at like one of the best exits. I mean, Cuban had one of the best exits from Web 1.0.
Broadcast.com for $5 billion.
Yeah.
And he collared the stock.
Beautiful.
Explain what happened, what that means.
Well,
it's sort of a critically important moment in the history of.
So he managed to take Broadcast.com public. Then he managed to sell it, as you said, for $5 billion to Yahoo.
And people don't remember, they make fun of it. It had $25 million in the last quarter as a public company, I believe.
Right.
It was making money. It was one of the few companies, because he was a shark and insisted that if you use his platform, you paid.
Yes. Yeah. And then he lost confidence in Yahoo, and he managed to, instead of dumping all the stock,
which
I think he probably had locked. Yeah, he basically collared it, so he was able to lock in his gains for Yahoo.
Right.
You know,
and collaring, for people who don't know, meant he went to someone like Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan, I don't know who it was, some bank, and said, I will take, I think the stock was about 100 or something. He said, I'll take 95 to 105 as my selling range. Right. I'll give up anything above 105, but I'll give up anything below 95. You guys give me money, put the stock into whatever device, and he wound up getting out and making more money than
many people.
Maybe even more money than Jerry Yang, or him and Todd Wagner, his partner, probably made more than Jerry Yang made ultimately.
It was a beautiful transaction.
Amazing.
And then just one other note on Mark Cuban, then we can talk about other things. But I continue to love what he's doing with educating Americans with Shark Tank. Like, I actually sit and watch that show with my kids, and I'm like, this is what I do for real life. Like, I sit and I hear these pitches, and then I have to ask questions similar to the sharks. And I think it's great that you have Americans, similar to what you're doing with this show, just teaching people about startups and how it works. And so I think it's great that he's doing that.
He's never lost that passion for it, which is not a surprise to guys like us who worked with him in the early days. He always had a passion for business and always will. But, a lot of people phone it in when they get to that point in their career. They're just like, I'm done. I don't need to talk to anybody. And it's just nice. It's refreshing to see somebody keep giving back. And I always thought he was a great investor because even though we didn't always see eye to eye on everything, he always had an opinion.
Yeah, which is great. Which
is great because, a lot of times I find a lot of investors are like, you come to founders come to them with an issue and they're like, that's interesting. I guess there's a lot of different ways you could go about it. Let's meet when I'm back from Aspen. And it's just like, all right, when we get back from this first quick break, I just want you to tell me how you started Freestyle Capital. And then we'll get into the most important thing, which is how do you pick companies and founders to back when we get back on This Week in Startups. I'm working on my segues.
I like it.
I'm working on my extemporaneous speaking ability.
Okay.
Mayor Jason's going to require, mayorjason.com will require some ability to speak extemporaneously. All right. Did I pronounce extemporaneously correctly?
Do you have an earpiece?
No.
So you just hear them? You can just
I lightly hear them.
Through the wall.
Yeah. All right. extemporaneously call me back in with the 3-2-1, please. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to This Week in Startups. My guest, Dave Samuel, is with us. He's D. Samuel on the old Twitter, DSAMUEL, co-founder of Freestyle Capital, which you can find at Freestyle.vc and Freestyle.vc on the old Twitter. And when we left our hero, you made a little bit of money from being a founder. Rondell, cleaning people's butts.
Yes.
Amazing. You just went to Japan and saw those incredible toilets and just thought this should be in America?
Yes, yeah. Actually, my dad, from my graduation from high school, he's like, I'll take you wherever you want to go. And I said I wanted to go to Tokyo. Dating myself, this is 1990.
Why?
Because of gadgets, because of technology. I was always a gadget guy.
Yeah.
I mean, back then, Sony was
that was
shit.
it.
You know?
Sony was Apple.
Sony was Apple. Like
Yeah.
I loved everything Sony, and Sony
The
was
Walkman.
from Tokyo.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I gotta go to Tokyo.
It was like going to Mecca. Yeah.
It was
It's like
big.
a pilgrimage.
But I had never seen these high-tech toilet seats until I got there. And then, traveled numerous times in that decade. And I was like, why is this product does not exist in America? So just
It
on the
makes no
Brondell
sense that
note,
it doesn't. I'm just thinking about it right now. I'm like, why don't I have this at home? And I'm
you
like,
need to have it at home.
I'm going to order it when I get,
And for kids, it's great also because basically they can stay cleaner.
They can
So,
stay cleaner, get less infections.
Yeah.
And kids sometimes skip a shower some days. They just fall
Yeah.
asleep. And you're like, do I wake this kid up and throw him in the bath?
Yeah.
Or as a parent, you're like, oh my God, if I throw them in the bath, they're going to be wired and up for another hour.
Yeah. So it's a shower on the toilet.
It's a shower in the toilet. For people who don't know,
Yes.
these things have become incredibly technologically advanced.
Yes.
What are some of the features, and we don't want to get too graphic here, but what are some of the features and what is the core competency of a smart toilet seat cleaner?
Well, for Brondell, we have the primary features are heated seat. So it's like, why do you need to sit on a cold toilet seat? Like, it's a heated seat. You have warm water bidet functionality, which is a spray that is both for feminine and for family. So you have two different nozzles. And then we have a dryer. You also have a deodorizer built in to the toilet. And some toilets have the auto lift, auto close. We don't have that. Our price point is typically between $300 to $600.
And those are when you walk up to it, the seat would rise.
Like the Toto Neo Rest is probably like a $4,000 or $5,000 toilet. That's like the
$4,000
high
or
end.
$5,000 toilet. That's ridiculous.
It's an important product, but yes, it's pretty expensive.
And so when you do it, what people don't realize is when you sit on a toilet in Japan, there is a remote control along the side of the toilet, or sometimes mounted.
Almost basically in Tokyo, you cannot not experience. Like, it is everywhere. Every hotel, every public restroom, every restroom.
And so what happens, I have to explain this to some people, is you're sitting, and when you press a certain button, a stick comes out, a water pick, essentially.
Yes.
And it will shoot water on your derriere.
That is correct.
You can control the temperature of the water.
Yes.
So you can have very warm, even to hot.
Yes.
Or cool it down a bit.
It can oscillate.
And oscillate.
Yes.
It will move in a certain pattern, and that'll make sure that the water
clean.
is just clean everywhere.
So
and
just
then
one other
warm air as well.
That is correct. Just one other, just kind of slightly graphic, but makes a lot of sense, is if you were to go out and fall into mud, and you were to come back to your house, and would you take would you say, can I have some dry paper towel to wipe off the mud? No, you'd say, can I have some water?
Right. You'd
so
want
it's
it to be fully clean.
Yeah, so it's like, why are we using dry toilet paper to clean ourselves? So
it makes no sense. And then you have this blowing of the hot air. It's always my favorite. Yours blows hot air.
Yes, yeah.
So you would be naturally concerned if this oscillating hot water is going all over my undercarriage, as it were.
Yeah, but you're totally clean, and then you're blow dried off.
And you blow dry it off, which is a wonderful feeling. I've experienced this.
So you can find us, of course, on Amazon, but then
I'm going to order it today.
Rolled
I'm
into
going to go to the Brondell.
Home Depot.
I'm going to order the 1000.
There you go.
That's the big one, right? The good one?
Well, our newest one is the 1400.
The 1400's out?
The 1400.
I had no idea. When did that come out?
That came out about 6 months ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And what is the upgrade there? Is there something notable?
The primary thing is we've made it smaller.
Ah.
So we've made it so it fits. I think we fit 95% of all toilet seats in America now.
This is fantastic. I know that Google started putting them in everywhere.
Google was before their time with Toto, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
And I really, as with most entrepreneurs, when you start a business, timing is incredibly important. I started
yes.
Brundell in 2002.
Very
I would have
early.
thought that we would be a lot further along, but it's taken time for the market to mature.
It's consumer behavior is hard, and timing is hard.
Yeah.
In fact, you were early with your music service
Yes.
because what you built with Spinner would have been Spotify or Pandora.
Yes.
So if you
Pandora.
if you stuck around for another decade, it could have been a $2 billion company.
Right.
It could have just kept going.
I would not have had the legs to do that. I mean, I was fortunate to basically start and sell. And then you're like, well, VC, it's longer term. We were talking about, like, how did I start venture? I love being an operator, but I love more not managing anybody.
Right.
And so I think you probably understand what I mean by that. And I think many entrepreneurs know that, where I loved the aspect of having a team. And let's say at Crackle, which was the internet video, we have a team and we're like, okay, we are going to focus on competing with YouTube, which
Right.
is what we were doing. And it's nice to have that team aspect of competing. But then, as many managers know, when you're managing people, there's a lot of challenges and stress associated with it. And so
Yeah.
it's hard to do it. So
People are complicated.
with being an investor,
Yeah.
I can be close to the juice and the excitement of a startup.
Right.
And I can give my advice and feedback, but I also can go home at nighttime and sleep
Right.
and not carry the weight of the company nor the stress associated with managing people.
Yeah, it's more fun in a way to be at a company when you're building the product and you're getting it to market. But once you get above, what, 30 people, 40 people?
Good point. Yeah, definitely. And that's why I'm focused
the
on
experience
seed.
just changes so much. It becomes arduous when you break 30, 40, 50 people. And you're starting to spend more time managing people than managing the development and the exploration of the product.
Yes.
I had the same experience.
Yeah. So for Freestyle, basically Josh and I co-founded the business, I guess technically in 2009.
Yeah.
And the way we started is we were doing angel investing. We said, why don't we do angel investing underneath an umbrella? And so we did 20 100K investments. So we did 20 deals over the span of basically 20 months. And we said, hey, we like this. And the three things that we were deciding on with starting Freestyle was, do we think we're good at it? And some early bets were good ones, and so we felt like we were. Two, this was an important one. Could we invest in a company and not be the CEO? Could we invest in the company and basically give that company advice, but be okay with that company choosing to go left when we're like, hey, maybe right's the best way?
Yeah.
We were talking about that a little bit, and that's the one thing that, just going back to Cuban, it's wonderful that he's able to speak his mind and be opinionated, which is wonderful.
Right.
You may or may not agree with him, but he has an opinion. And my philosophy at Freestyle is, when I'm working with an entrepreneur, I want an entrepreneur that is able to listen to my opinion and not necessarily agree with it, but at least understand it. And if the entrepreneur is like, my vision is this way, and I hear what you're saying, Dave, and I can see some of the benefits of it, but I still think this way is the best, and I'm like, great. Let's go this way.
You have to let them go pursue their
Yeah, 'cause they have the
because
vision.
They got to do, and they have to do the work every day.
Totally.
It's not like you're going to come in and do 12 hours today
No.
to get them there.
I want the entrepreneur to be able to listen to my advice and understand it. But I'm fine if they decide to go a different way.
And were you always that way, or in the beginning when you started making the investments, where you're like, oh my God, this person's going to flip the car, they're going to crash it into the wall, and they're not listening?
It was difficult, and I think, as you know, with doing these investments, like, as you learn more about the team, like, the team is so critical with the overall plan, and so you really are investing in that person, typically a few people that that are agile enough to make decisions on the fly to change possibly the way they're going.
So number one, are you good at it? Number two, can you let it go?
Yes, and I was comfortable with that.
And both of those things occurred. And there was a third, you said.
I did have a third. Wait
Yeah.
1 second. Oh, and then basically, can we raise other people's money? Because we were putting our own money to work.
Got it.
And then the big test is like, will other people give us money?
OPM.
And
Other
so
people's money.
other people's money. And so we started Freestyle. We had a minimum of hitting 20 million of other people's money, and we ended up raising 26. And so was
Incredible.
that
30%
started
over. Yeah.
started in that other people's money started in 2011. And so and very much enjoying it.
Fascinating. So right about, we both started, right, if you count 2011, that's when I started doing the Sequoia Scouts program.
Right.
So we're right in that same window, which was a great window. So a lot of
Yeah.
interesting companies at that time. So when we get back from this final break, I want to talk about the timing and getting in that really crucial period after the financial crisis, but
Yes.
before the massive run-up that we've seen in this 2015 to, let's say, 2017 period when we get back on This Week in Startups. Perfect. All right, rounding second base.
All right.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1, me people. Hey, everybody, welcome back. My guest today, Dave Samuel, and he is at early stage VC. We'll talk a little bit about his investments. If you're listening to this program, I just recently finished the book, Angel, which you can find at fine booksellers everywhere. If you're interested in angel investing or starting a company, it's a good place to start, I hear. And I read the audiobook. So if you're not sick of my voice, go ahead and read. Go ahead and listen to it on Audible or other audiobook platforms, if there are any. I don't know if there are any anymore.
I think that's a big one.
I think that's it, yeah. All right, listen. When we left, we were talking about raising other people's money. You get the $26 million fund. And it turns out, hey, this is a great vintage, a great time to start investing because it was post the financial crisis. The stock market had lost half its value. Dow went from, 12 or so to whatever, 5 or 6.
I don't remember.
NASDAQ went
Yes.
from 5 to, I think, 1,800. I mean, it was brutal. And people thought it was the end of the world.
Yes.
And then you've raised a $26 million fund and started to go to work. What was it like to do that? Were you raising that money into the financial crisis, or did you finish right after?
Well, I guess it was right after, but the challenge was, new money managers. Venture had been hit hard
Sure.
basically twice in the decade because it got hit incredibly hard in the 2000 era and then, hit again in 2008. And then the other thing was this whole notion of seed venture and sub $100 million funds was all new. And so
Yeah, nobody had ever done one. Were you were you the first, or who else had done one?
I would say the godfathers of the seed venture were originally Josh Koppelman at First Round Capital.
Correct, yeah.
And Steve Anderson at Baseline.
Right.
And those guys really, they started, I'm pretty sure in like 2007, 2008. And so they saw this before. You always had Ron Conway always doing things.
Right. The spray and pray, $10 million funds, $20 million funds,
But-
where he hit Google.
Yeah.
And a little tiny sliver of Facebook, I understand.
Yeah. And so we had to educate LPs or
Limited
limited
partners.
partners, the people that invest with us, like what is this new asset class? And so we, since I think they understand today that if you have a smaller fund, our fourth fund is 90 million. We decided to stay south of 100 because our philosophy is our ability to multiply a sub $100 million fund is easier than the $500 million or $1 billion funds.
Right.
So that was our pitch back in 2011, and that's still our pitch and philosophy today in 2017. That being smaller allows us to be a little bit more nimble and bigger multiples.
What are the check sizes that you do? And then talk about follow-on investing. And we'll get into what check size, what stage, and then how you make a decision on those founders as well. So let's talk a little bit about how you get to know the founders, how you make that decision, and then after a year or two, when you make that decision to follow on, do bridge financing. So
Yeah. So because our fund has gone from 26 to 90, we are putting more money to work. And so originally we were putting $500,000. When I say originally, in like 2011, 2012, we were putting $500,000 as our initial investment. Today we're around $1 million when we invest in a company. These seed rounds, as I'm sure you've been, is there's now this notion of pre-seed. And so there's pre-seed, which for me, I consider to be sub $1 million raise.
Which
And
used
then
to be seed.
Which used to be seed. And then Freestyle comes in when they raise between $1 million to $3 million.
Which used to be the Series A.
That is correct. And so that's where we participate. And then the way our math works is when we put $1 in the ground, so we put $1 million into a company, we have $2 million reserved for that company. Now, not all of our $1 million investments are going to work out, but
So
for
they're
the
not going
most
to
part,
qualify for that $2 million.
right?
You can't just blow the $1 million. Everybody else passes, and then
Right.
they come to you and you go, yeah, no, here's $2 million to catch the falling knife.
Yeah. So that does not happen.
How do
but-
you make that critical decision? Because this is something that's come up a lot for me personally.
Right.
Hey, we got a lot. It didn't work out. We want to raise more money. Great. Can I do introductions? Great. We do the introductions. Great. Nobody wants to invest. Would you like to bridge the company? So how do you handle that conversation, and how do you make those decisions? There seems to be three categories. One, it's an undeniable success. A Sequoia or a Benchmark or Social Capital is going to do the Series A, Series B. You're obviously going to plow in that $2 million, right?
Right.
But then there's these two others, which is partial traction, let's say, and then no traction. I'm assuming with no traction, it's pretty easy to say, hey, listen, I don't think this business works. It's time to shut it down.
Right.
Or wrap it up. But what about that middle, which I think is the challenging part, for me at least?
It is a challenging part. There's this notion of definitely the bridge rounds. And so you have seed, and then you'll hear people saying, well, this is a seed 2 or this is a seed 3.
Seed plus.
Seed plus. So we participate in those rounds. And it's really just on a case-by-case basis. And so the primary thing
Walk me through one, yeah.
Well, the primary thing that I look at when we invest, setting aside team and all these other things, I guess I would say two things. One is, because I've been an entrepreneur and started companies previously, I like to think about whether I could be a co-founder of this business with this founding team.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
one way I think about it. It's like, can I be
I love that test.
excited to work with these people closely? Can I be excited about the mission that they're solving? And so
So it's
that's
a gut
one.
thing. It's
It's
like
kind of a-
putting yourself into this scenario,
Yes.
which isn't real.
right.
But would I be stoked to be the co-founder or president or VP of marketing at this company?
Right. So that's one thing.
What a great test.
So thank you. We like that one. That's one that we work on. And then the second one is really, and that was actually a question I just followed up with an entrepreneur today on due diligence I'm working on. It's like, I want to understand, let's say you have the $2 million in the bank October 1st. Tell me your goals for your business October 1st, 2018, 1 year from today. And do I think, A, those goals are realistic? And B, do I think those goals allow you to raise a Series A financing?
So what will the use of capital be?
Right.
And explain to me if that will qualify you, since the first $1 million didn't,
Right.
to getting to that Series A.
Yes. So those are there's many other check boxes: team, product, TAM, total addressable market. Is this thing large enough? But those are ones that I focus on that might be a little bit different than other investors.
Let's talk about the first check. Go back to the $1 million. What makes an investment intriguing when you meet with a founder, or I forward you something, you read the deck? What are things that just pique your interest and say, I got to dig deeper, I got to know more, and make you, let's say, prime the pump a bit for, hey, this could be a Freestyle company?
So I think, Jason, you probably get like a tremendous amount of deal flow, and sometimes, honestly, and I'll tell this to entrepreneurs, is there's so much activity out there that sometimes we just have to make like a quick gut decision. It's just like, your deck looks great. I appreciate the problem that you're solving. It's a good problem to solve. I just don't have the personal conviction to do it. And so how do you encapsulate that into a specific filter? it's hard to
Right.
necessarily encapsulate.
Not for me.
It's just that one's not for me.
Right.
Now, like one of the deals I did is actually sitting across the office from you. Their office is right there.
In here at
And this
WeWork,
and
Golden Gate.
and this deal is focused on workers' comp. Like I don't know much about workers' comp, but I wanted to have personally, I wanted to have an investment within the insurance vertical, and I looked at.
Why?
I feel that basically that industry needs innovation and technology and transparency. It's a massive industry. And so I looked at car insurance. That one's it was a little bit late to come into that. I looked
'cause all
into
those
house insurance.
pay-per-mile ones had taken off.
Yeah. So then I looked into house insurance. And then I actually didn't know much about workers' comp because within traditional software, we don't have workers' comp per se.
Yeah,
But
carpal tunnel.
yeah, but it is a little bit, but
Yeah,
basically
it's not
for
like construction or being a firefighter.
right. And so workers' comp is a massive multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's very regulated. And so anyway, so like why do that deal? Well, that was just kind of like I wanted to have an insurance play, and I like the team, and I said, I'm gonna do that deal. So I think, as you probably appreciate, many times you just kind of have to go with your gut because there's so many different people are asking you for money, basically.
Right. And there's not that much data in the early days. It's
Right.
one of the challenges of our business is that, if you're publicly trying to evaluate Facebook, you can look at their revenue per user for the last, you can do revenue per daily active user, revenue for monthly active users. I mean, there's all different ways to skin the cat and how
Right.
it's changing and what percentage it's changing, earning per share, all this different data. With our companies, not much data.
It's a
so
gut.
There's a lot of gut. What other types of qualities do you look for in a founder? Like when we start getting to that sort of personal, you're looking at the founder, you're saying, for me, I look for people who are passionate about the idea and that I feel have some sort of craftsmanship. They just know how to make product. I just like well-built product for some reason.
Yeah, no, I think that's important. I think we've done close to 90 deals at Freestyle, and most of them are teams. And so the solo founder is, I think, rare today. And so I think having a team is important. I typically ask, like, how long have you known your team members? And so it's great when they have, been working together at a previous gig or they have experience working together because, as we know, the startup is incredibly stressful. And so I like, if possible, if the team has been working together for some time, that's great.
So if it's 3 people out of Google or 2 people who were together at Stanford or
Yeah.
they both worked in sales at LinkedIn, hey,
Yeah.
this means you have some ability to get through the hard times together with an esprit de corps or something.
Yeah. And then typically you've got a technical co-founder because they're able to build some prototype or version of their product without having any capital.
Right.
Because
Critical.
and that it is critical. So like we're not going to do a deal. We're not going to do a PowerPoint deal where the founders are still employees elsewhere. Like, no, if you're going to do this deal, you need to jump. You need to jump
Right.
from
Scary.
It is scary. I appreciate it's scary, but you need to jump and say, you know what, I am committed to this, and I'm gonna, work on this for 6 months, bootstrapping,
Right.
and then be able to raise capital. And really, I feel like the
It's
model.
kind of a litmus test, isn't it?
It is a litmus test, and I feel like the model is fair. Where basically, we as investors are paying a higher pre-money value, so we're buying things that are more expensive, but that entrepreneur has also demonstrated their willingness to devote time and energy to the company. And so I think the model is, I think it's a fair one.
Yeah, I find it's very interesting when people have very low self-awareness that if you say to an investor, I'm willing to start this project, provided you give me money. And that's the starting pistol for me.
Yeah.
It's the biggest turnoff in the world. It means you have no conviction about it.
Yeah.
When you started Spinner, you just needed to see that exist in the world. When I started Weblogs Inc., I just needed to disrupt traditional publishing, and I had to do it. And it didn't matter if anybody was coming along for the ride or not.
Totally. I remember telling my parents, like, because I was working at Oracle.
Yeah.
And I told them, yeah, I'm quitting and I'm starting this internet radio.
Oracle.
Yeah. And they're like, wait, Dave, what? Wait, what is this internet thing? And obviously it all paid off well. But yeah, I mean.
Were you in the Oracle like sales training craziness? I've heard legendary stories about that.
I was a geek at MIT. So I was in Building
you
300.
Went to MIT?
Yeah.
Undergrad or master's? Or?
Undergrad. So
Really?
graduated there in '94. Worked
With
at
what?
Oracle. Double E.
Wow.
And then somebody wisely said, which I still agree with today, that starting a software company is easier than a hardware company. And
Sure
so
it
when I
is.
went to work at Oracle, I actually didn't know a lot about software. I knew more about hardware. But then Netscape went public in August of '95. This is a long time ago.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the birth of the internet. And so that
Right.
was when I jumped into Spinner soon after.
We just had Jim Clark on the program.
Oh, yeah.
It was so trippy. You know, he still codes every day.
Really?
He's like, yeah, I code every day for like 2 hours, some days 4 hours, some days 8 hours. He's like literally built his own home automation system for his
That's
home.
beautiful.
And he's on the show here showing the software. And he's like, load up, he's raising the garage doors in his house in West Palm Beach or wherever the heck it is. And I'm sitting here going, billionaire is writing code every day. I mean, it's just so charming and alluring. And
That's beautiful. I mean, he was one of the godfathers of the internet.
And then you get to people who say, I'm an idea person. They have no ability to craft anything. To me, it's such a red flag when I ask people what their skills are today, they say, well, I'm an idea person. And I'm like, so are the other 5 billion people on planet Earth or whatever it is today.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I like to think about is for me, I think the idea itself is probably like 10% of the investment. Like, because whatever idea you happen to be working on, there are other people working on that idea. And just one other note, like sometimes people say, we have no competition. I'm like, if you have no competition, then it's most likely not necessarily a very good idea because competition is good. Like
There should be some competition.
Yeah.
And you should be displacing somebody.
Yeah.
I think what's happened a lot? When we were founders, there wasn't this weird, I'm going to try to game the investor. So I'm going to optimize what I'm doing to trick or otherwise induce an investment.
Right.
Which there seems to be this escalation of tactics to manipulate investors, which I was unaware of until I went onto the other side of the table. But in the beginning, it was just like, here's my idea. Is it cool? Let's play with it. And do we all want to make this happen? But now that there's so much more competition, like exploding term sheets or, I don't know, not exploding term sheets from the investors. I'm talking about ratcheting up valuations. I don't know if you've seen this one.
Yeah, kind of Y Combinator-esque where,
Oh, no problem.
1 hour, within,
Yeah.
like within 1 hour, my valuation is going to go from 12 to 14. And
Because
it's an hour later and the company is 1 hour more, 1 hour older. And
Right.
therefore,
Oh, I
It's
see.
more
So 60
expensive.
minutes, $2 million.
yeah, I'm just saying, anyway.
We're going up $35,000 an hour in value
Yes,
per
yeah.
minute.
Yes. Yeah.
No, I literally had a
That's
company from
crazy.
Y Combinator say, like, the valuation if you get in this week is 6, but next week's 8, or whatever. It's 2 weeks. I said, what is that based on? Like, well, we have an engineer starting next week, or 2 new engineers starting, and Google pays $1 million per engineer. I was like, if they're engineers in AI and self-driving cars, maybe. But what are we talking about here? Like, or that it's closing now, so I don't have time to meet with you.
Yeah.
That was the other weird one I got from a Y Combinator company was, I said, okay, great. I'm really interested. I think this is fascinating. It was really, you guys have done a great job. Here's my assistant, like, she'll get back to you and we'll set up coffee. And they're like, when, tomorrow? I'm like, no, I got some stuff on my plate. I got to travel, I got this thing, but just talk to her. And they're like, well, it's closing. I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, are we not meeting? I'm like, we can meet, maybe the next round. I don't know, but whenever my schedule allows, I'll meet with you. But,
Yes.
You really are going to close the round, and you really want me as an angel investor, but we can't schedule a meeting. It was so weird.
That is a little weird.
It got a little weird. It seemed like there was a period of time where there was a resentment of investors taking advantage of founders. I never felt that too much when we were coming up, but I guess there was some period of
And you
that.
hear some people say, "Oh, you're on the dark side." Like, I don't know why people say that, but
That's weird.
I find it weird. I don't
Yeah.
feel like I'm on the dark side.
I think, you know what I think it is historically, I think Paul Graham had a bad experience with investors. So, everything's always top down in every
Right.
organization. So I think because he might have had a bad experience with investors or seen some early bad behavior, he always wanted to disempower or neuter any possibility that the investors would screw with the YC companies, which I think I understand he had good intent,
Right.
but it just got taken to a level of manipulation and of trickery
Right.
that just felt inauthentic and silly. It doesn't create the alignment. What do you think about governance? So you're putting in larger checks now, and sometimes these are convertible notes, but I mean, when you start putting in these kind of checks, you probably want to know what the share price is and be able to buy it.
So we're not doing convertible notes, but for governance, it is an interesting dilemma. We were talking a little bit about Uber previously, and so Freestyle's philosophy is, at least within the seed stage, if it's hard for me as an investor to necessarily butt heads with the founder because I'm not going to take over the business because I have a seed position in it. So our philosophy is we must align our incentives with the founder, and so we don't have a lot of like board governance at the seed level. Typically we kind of just push that to the Series A, and then for most all Series A term sheets, the Series A investor comes in with a board seat. So
But
that's
you
kind of our
price
philosophy.
around and get off the convertible note nonsense.
We do
for the
price
safe.
around because we've had some challenges previously with the safe. Like, I'll just explain one thing that happened is there were two founders on a convertible note, and one of the founders left. And then the other founder got all the equity, but I'm like, well, we invested in two of you, and that was kind of how we kind of came up with what we thought was a fair value for the business with the note. And so so that was one.
A single founder.
I have a single founder.
Why should that other founder get all of it? It should dilute. Everybody should. Those shares should just get back into the pool.
Yes.
Well, they should be eliminated. They were never vested. They go back into employee stock option pool for the next group of employees.
Yeah. So it was.
But
it was
increases
weird,
everybody's position.
It was
as opposed to just theirs.
Correct. Yeah. So that was one thing that happened. And then just another thing is you've heard this also, where if you raise a lot of debt and then you actually do an equity round, it's just hard for the founder many times to like basically have a huge equity haircut at a single point in time. I know it's kind of a weird mental thing, but still it's like, it's just sometimes a huge stomach ache. And so our philosophy is, for pre-seed, it's fine to do notes, but when we participate, all of our term sheets are a simple term sheet, but it's priced round.
And yeah, I never thought about the double emotional whack of, I gave away 30% of my company in the seed,
Right.
and then, or in the
pre-seed,
and then I'm giving away another 30% in the seed, and 30 and 30. I mean, this is like, oh my goodness.
It all comes together at a single point.
Right. And
Now,
then somebody's got to go through the cap table and go, oh boy, here's some difficult medicine to swallow.
Yeah.
And then for a chaser, here's some more difficult medicine to swallow. It's really like doing two shots back to back.
Yes. Yeah.
The other thing I saw that was really troubling to me was the number of safe notes piling up at different valuations.
Right.
And caps.
Yeah.
And then different people paying different prices, but in different orders. So so going up to 12, and then back down to 8, and then back up to 9, and then somebody else got in and then nobody knows that different people were paying different prices, and these are all naive new angels who don't ask for the cap table and all the other documents and every other safe note to read it.
Right.
And I said, hey, will all these people feel when the person who bought it for 14 knows this other person bought in for 8?
Yeah.
After them.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, they're not going to know unless they review the cap table, whatever, but eventually, whatever, we'll have to deal with it. But that's the docs they signed.
Right.
And I'm like, the docs they signed is a different moral, ethical concept or conceit than I'm going to do right by my partners.
Right.
Right. And I think that's where people start to lose the the script. And then also, people are starting, when they convert these, they have to convert multiple. They have like seed 1, seed 2, seed 3, seed 4. So you have multiple classes of shares, and they're like, it gets really messy, these cap tables.
Yeah. So, I mean, my philosophy is when we
think it's
go
good
out for
philosophy.
Series A, we want to have, a
Clean.
clean cap table and clean debt structure, which is
Yeah.
typically no debt.
No more debt. Yeah,
No more
clean
debt. Yeah.
Interesting. And so one thing that's come up a lot with early stage investors is the Series A investors looking at folks like yourself or myself early on and thinking, these guys got a pretty great deal. We're going to maybe not run roughshod over them, but they're going to lose some rights, or, maybe they tried to mess with your rights.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had that happen with Series A investors where they're like, hey, we want to take away information rights, we want to take away your pro rata, we want to take away this or that? And then if so, how have you dealt with that? You can give us an example if you want to mask, the actual people in it involved, but broad strokes. Yeah.
Well, I think so for the hot deals where there's multiple term sheets coming in for a Series A, it's not all seed investors will be able to do their pro rata in a Series A. And so we have had instances where we wanted the deal to happen, and we were like, okay, we got in at the seed. We would like to be able to get another $2 million in the A, which from a legal perspective, we had the rights to do it. But from, I guess, a tactical deal perspective, we said, okay, we know for the most part, the Series A investors have it pegged between, on the low end, maybe 16%, but most likely closer to 20, as we know, or 22. And so for their structure to work, they want to have that percentage.
Just
and,
saying, I want 20%.
I want 20% post.
Right.
And so...
and there's only $3 million.
Sorry about that.
There's only $3 million to
go
go
to
around.
Yeah. So we've had challenges with that. And so, in those instances, we have not been able to put our full pro rata in, but we're...
So you just be reasonable. You have the conversation with the founder, you have the conversation with the VC, or everybody?
We typically go directly just with the founder on managing that.
So you say, we'll step out of the way a bit to let them come in.
If we're excited about the Series A investor as a partner.
Hey, let's go through your portfolio, things that, we'll start with things that are big wins that you feel really great about. Tell us some of the ones that you feel hopeful about and you're thrilled. And then we'll get into regrets, and we've all had a few.
Well, I think a fun one deal is that's within the B2B space is Intercom. And so
oh my God, you did Intercom?
Yeah, and actually then Social Capital did the A.
Oh my God, that's on a tear.
Yeah.
I love Des Traynor. He is one of the great mentors and speakers we've had in all of our events.
Oh, really?
Fantastic.
Yeah. No, he's a wonderful product person.
Great. That product is amazing. They're, one of the fastest growing SaaS companies. Top 10 fastest growing SaaS companies right now is what I hear.
I very much like it. We got lucky. And just on that note.
So you did the seed round.
We did the seed round. And
so it was what, a $10, $20 million company or something in that range?
Oh, it was we invested, it was sub 10.
Oh my yum.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's going to be huge for you. That's going to be $1 billion company.
I hope and believe so. Yeah. No, we're excited about that.
Yeah. They're on a tear. It's an Irish company.
It is. Yeah. So
how did you meet Des Traynor and the team over there?
That was the 500 startups. And so it was a 500 startups deal, and I saw the pitch, and then the way it came back in the fold was I saw 3 or 4 pitches of people showing me their Intercom dashboard. And then I was like, wait, I keep on seeing this Intercom dashboard.
Yeah.
I'm like, I appreciate what you're showing me, but I'm actually going to call Owen from Intercom because I keep on seeing his dashboard in these pitches.
Yeah, it's like seeing a startup show you Stripe.
Right.
And you're like, why is everybody using Stripe?
Yeah.
What is this Stripe thing? It's like, take that little note in your moleskin, and it's the poor founder thinks you're taking notes about them, when in fact you're taking a note to follow up about this other startup that they love. It's a kind of a funny moment.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So that's actually, that's going to be that'll be the biggest win out of 500 startups. Previously it was Twilio.
Right.
which I think is worth $1.5 billion. I'm not sure what it's worth in the public market right now. They went public pretty early.
Right.
But I could easily see Intercom eclipsing Twilio. I mean, I love Twilio,
I
but
hope so.
that's going to
Yeah.
be amazing for you. It's going to
Well,
be
thank you.
that'll be a dragon for that fund. Is that in the 26 or the 90?
That's in the 2011. That's a fun one.
Wow.
We have a few good ones. Another fun one company is a company called Airtable. I don't know if
Yeah,
you've
of course.
met Howie would actually be great for the show.
Yeah, I know Airtable.
he's
Explain
a
to people what they do and how you
wonderful.
found them.
Yeah, so Airtable, interestingly enough, Howie, a Duke graduate, he was our first intern at Freestyle. So in 2010, when he was a senior at Duke, he worked on models for Josh and I. And then he actually came out and worked at, I don't know if you remember Crowdflower. So Lucas Bewald, who's another kind of,
course.
geeky tech entrepreneur.
Crowdflower launched at Launch Festival,
Yes.
and they were doing. It was sort of a
Mechanical
better version
Turk.
of Amazon Turk.
Yeah, Mechanical Turk better version. Yes. And so
How did
actually
that do? It's still doing great, right? Printing
that was
money?
actually our first seed investment. So when you go back to
Wow.
the 20 deals that Josh and I did, the first one we did was into Crowdflower.
Wow.
So anyway, Howie went to work for Lucas, and then he started a Y Combinator company called eTax that Salesforce acquired. And then he was like, I think I could do Salesforce better on a global scale with a better software stack. And so Airtable has some of his learnings from Salesforce, but really it's basically a better merge of a database and a spreadsheet. And
People
it's
are
just
going crazy for Airtable.
it's how we manage Freestyle. So we manage all of our deal flow, all of our portfolio on Airtable.
Database plus spreadsheet. So if you're using a spreadsheet as a database, which many people do,
Yes.
or a CRM, which many people do,
Yes.
you can do fancier, slicker, databasey type stuff with it.
Yes. It's got a great interface for both web, but then it has a great interface for interfacing Airtable
There's a little
via
bit
the
of
phone.
onboarding time to get like into that brain set. It's like
Yes.
because it's this new hybrid
Yes.
because you've been stuck in the Excel
but
40-year.
just their
spreadsheet.
numbers, their engagement numbers are through the roof. I mean, once you basically get into the system and understand it, it's a wonderful platform. So,
You're also in Patreon.
Patreon, I mean, that makes me feel good from both an investor financial perspective, but then I want artists to be able to make money. And even similar to doing what you do, which is
Podcasting.
like
and
help so many entrepreneurs out there. I want you to be able to make a living doing
Sure.
it. I don't know if you're on Patreon, but it's just as a reminder that the idea is that artists are able to have patrons sign up for their art. And typically these artists are creating content maybe on a weekly basis, maybe on a monthly basis. And I may pay $5 to an artist and I get some Kickstarter-esque like benefits from that. But it's just this wonderful circle of artists to be able to do what they do and fans be able to pay the artist
directly
directly.
on a reoccurring revenue basis. Interesting.
Yes.
When we started this podcast, we started something called TWiST, and we just created a listserv and said if you want to be the executive, if you want to be a producer or executive producer of the show, we'll put you in the credits. So in
Right.
the early episode, we would put you in the credits,
yeah.
and you would pay $5 a month to $100 a month, and people would pay.
Right.
And it was
Yeah, that was
hilarious.
early Patreon.
And it was like an early kind of conceptual version of Patreon, and we got to $5,000 or so a month, and I was like, "This is incredible! We're gonna be able to hire a producer or a full-time person," and it was
Right.
great. But then advertising kind of gave us escape velocity. There weren't a lot of tools to do this, and I think that's where Patreon really made it more systematic that you could like do this. And there's people on there who have tens of thousands of dollars per month.
Yes.
And I remember one guy left, Tom Merritt, who was working for Leo Laporte doing This Week in Tech. He was doing like his daily tech show, and then he left Leo to just do his own because he wanted to do it in a different city. I think he makes $15,000 or $20,000 a month, and he did this very cool thing for his podcast. That Tom Merritt was very interesting. If I get to this level, I'm going to add this correspondent. So if I get to from 14 to 16, I'll add Veronica Belmont, a great broadcaster, journalist, to say, hey, we'll have her on 3 days a week.
Yeah.
So we'll pay her whatever, $250 or $500 to come on and prepare her little segment. And it really motivated the audience to sort of hit those other milestones and have access to them. It was very clever.
It's a great viral model. Just on a related note, it's interesting because most of the clips you'll find on YouTube, and basically at the end of the clip, it's like, hey, sign up for Patreon. So it's basically, a viral model of getting customers to sign up. And so
what's great is it makes you so independent of the other platforms. So you're independent of YouTube's whims, because YouTube all of a sudden said, you know what, PewDiePie is like doing Nazi and saying the N-word or whatever, like the #1 guy is just going crazy. All the advertisers, what's that?
I don't know this, but yes, okay.
So there's a guy, PewDiePie, who's the he's the guy who does the Minecraft videos.
Oh, okay.
He has 50 million subscribers, but he went kind of... He was doing really racy, crazy stuff, like, having people hold up. He just did really, like, pranks that were really, like, in very poor taste and racist-y, kind of anti-Semitic, Nazi, bizarre, like, that troll humor where they're like, Nazis are funny and we're going to just, it's like, they're just like, they're just like these weird internet meme type stuff. Anyway, he started engaging in that kind of stuff, and the advertisers were like, we're really not interested in Nazis in the video, or the N-word, so maybe you could take that out. But anyway, it had this ripple effect throughout YouTube where they said, from now on, we're not going to let these type of videos that have these kind of words get advertising, and we're going to stop. If your video doesn't hit 10,000 views, we're not going to put ads in it. So they just, so if you did something with violence in it, it could even be something as simple as, like, I'm talking about a terrorist attack. They would just be like, that's not appropriate for an advertiser. Ivory Soap does not want to be in front of an ISIS debate video or whatever. So all of a sudden, all these creators got rounded up in this, bad behavior of a few, and it just demolished the YouTube ecosystem for a whole swath of creators, and that drove a bunch of them to Patreon.
Right.
And saying, you know what, I don't want to have a YouTube dependency. If YouTube's going to change the rules with no warning, and we lose our advertising, we need to have two or three revenue streams. So merchandise became one, Patreon, and other ones. And now everybody's copying Patreon. Hey, we got a Twitter question from Brian Chiriban. Sorry for butchering the name. How much time do you allocate on new deals versus portfolio companies? It's an interesting question.
That is a great one. So, I mean, typically it's 50-50. And so I was kind of in charge of our fundraise, and so that took a third of my time. So it was kind of a third. But for the most part, I split it 50-50. And we, have, similar to you, probably lots of deal flow coming in the front door. But then my goal and commitment to my existing portfolio companies is to have a lot of time and availability for them during their first year life cycle. So when we invest, we're focused on helping them during that first year. Intercommon as an example, when Social Capital did the Series A, I became less involved with the business and kind of handed the baton to Mamoon, who joined the board at Social Capital. I mean, at Intercommon.
And you don't take board seats ever?
Are you
rethinking that now because of the bigger fund size?
I am still comfortable with there being a solo founding board for seed rounds, for me personally. Just because I may disagree with the founder in some instances, but I'm also not going to be able to fully kind of like take the reins of a startup at that early stage. I mean, it's really the founding team needs to be able to carry it. So there's some instances that I joined the board, I guess, for the company that's actually across the hallway from you. I am on the board. By the way, if you like. Actually, they haven't announced it, so I'll just, but I'm on the board of that one. But other instances, I'm not on the board.
Yeah. Hey, after 100 investments, you must have learned some things that if you could transport yourself back in time, you would, and just whisper in your ear, don't do this, or change things up a bit, or here's a better approach to being a great very in these early stage companies. What are the things that you would tell your younger self back in 2009?
That's a good one. I guess, two things come to mind. One of them is not anything new because I think it's a challenge within the whole market. But the B2C market is so difficult today, which I'm sure you can appreciate, where basically, just as example, musically, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. I thought that could possibly be a breakout deal because it was very popular within my household. I have 4 kids and they were always doing musically. But the finicky consumer and the power of, I guess, Facebook and some of the big guys, like they can kind of cut off, cut them off when they see growth for a particular B2C deal. So me being a B2C entrepreneur, I'm challenged and scared by the fact that it's difficult to do B2C investments, but it's also, they're just so risky. And so anyway, it's just,
hit rate is so low.
Hit rate is so, yeah.
It can pay off if it becomes Facebook or Twitter or whatever, but it's just so hard to build an at-scale B2C company. And now you have this weird aberration that didn't exist before, which is Facebook, which is absolutely willing to study people's use of their graph,
right?
Then pixel by pixel copy them,
yeah,
in a way that we would have considered in our era to be uncouth, unethical, immoral, disgusting, depending on who you are. I find it flat out disgusting that Zuckerberg can tell everybody, get over your pride and just, your ideas don't matter. What matters is Evan Spiegel's ideas. And then to use the data that they tried to convince startups was in their best idea to use Facebook Connect, use our graph.
Right.
And then they studied the graph usage.
Right.
And cut off one of their own alumni, Dave Morin, when he started to get some traction with Path, and then stole from Dave Morin after cutting him off his really elegant innovation of you could hover over and instead of just giving a like, give a heart, a sad, a cry. They just stole it from him after killing his company. What is it? How does an entrepreneur approach an ecosystem with a marauding, moralless, I'm saying this, not you, brutal competitor like Zuckerberg who does not care about his own employees' ideas and is more than willing to just steal the best ideas from young startups we invest in? How do you feel personally about it?
I don't know if I can answer that question, but I will just say that.
How do you feel about it?
Well, it is challenging being a B2C entrepreneur today, and so, we continue to make B2C investments. My gut is that for Fund 3, we'll end up probably 35% B2C, 65% B2B. And the B2Cs can, be breakouts. And so we're in a deal called WAG, which is WAG Walking, which is Uber for dog walking. You're like, well, really? But it's actually, the numbers are through the roof, and they have a tremendous amount of loyalty for allowing people access to their home to let their dog out for a walk. It is.
For people, it's the same as their child. If you don't have kids and you have a dog,
yeah,
it is the same for you as a child. Now, once you have your kids, your dogs go back to being animals.
Yes.
You look at them slightly differently.
You do, but still,
but it's still a cherished thing.
When it's like 6 o'clock, you're like, oh, I'm supposed to walk Fluffy. Oh, you know what? If I can just do WAG Walking. And so anyway, WAGs is a B2C deal that's, through the roof, but
congrats on that.
Thank you. We're excited about it, but it's challenging being a B2C entrepreneur. So I wish I had better advice for you B2C entrepreneurs, because I was one.
Yeah.
And I want to continue to see innovation there. But
hard.
I don't know what the solution is.
I really hope that something breaks at Facebook, because I feel like their reign of terror and like ethical marauding is a real wet blanket on innovation. I don't think the United States would ever do antitrust on them, but I do think the EU needs to take a deep look at Facebook's use of the graph.
Yeah, it's an area that I don't know a lot about. But
think about this. I have some inside information. I'll float it here for the first time. This is conspiracy theory.
Okay.
But I'm known for floating conspiracy theories that 3 to 6 months later no longer feel like conspiracy theory and start to feel like fact.
Okay.
Here's a conspiracy theory. We would love for you to benefit from the social graph use Facebook Connect and save a ton of time. Just put this little SDK in your app or your website. Now we know how often, and in fact how, people are using your product.
Mm-hmm.
And you may perceive that it's just connecting them. But we may have some other hooks in there. And this is a conspiracy theory that is floating around, that we could actually study on a feature-by-feature basis how people are using your product. So we may know, if you log in with, Path, that the feature that Dave created of the like is the killer feature.
Right.
So not only are we going to know who's using your product, what demographics, and how many, we are going to be able to study what features work. Then we're going to be able to take those same users, since there are users as well, and we're going to be able to, and this has been proven, market to them our new beta products that are mimicking your own. So there's this new collaborative, I don't know if it's called Party Down or Party, some group video chat.
Oh, House Party.
House Party.
Greylock backed.
Greylock?
Also popular in my household.
Okay, so here's what happened. There's a story out about House Party and Facebook that is really nasty. They're building their own clone of House Party. And what they did was they went, according to these reports, and who knows what's true, they have their own House Party.
It would make sense that Facebook would have that.
They marketed to House Party's user and House Party was naive enough to use Facebook Connect, and they marketed to those people to try the new product. So if you partner with Facebook as a startup, and I said this when Paul Graham brought them into Y Combinator, I said, you have to get your head examined. You're not letting the fox into the henhouse. You're moving the henhouse into the fox cave. Like you're literally picking up all your entire henhouse and saying, let's relocate this in the fox den. Right. That's the analogy.
Yeah.
And there is nobody who partners with Facebook who does not wake up with the throat slit. So there's a message to founders. If you use Facebook Connect, you are handing your data to a competitor who does not have any morals or ethics around respecting the art and creation of other peers. And what they did, stealing every single thing Evan Spiegel has done, and then putting it into every single product, I believe is the most nefarious and disgusting thing you can do in entrepreneurship. I personally believe that. Now, it's one thing to build on another person's ideas, obviously. Right. That's how progress is made. But wholesale stealing combined with using data that you got under false pretenses and then using your ad network to then kill the customer base of a startup, this to me seems anti-competitive to a level that is actionable. It may not be actionable by our weak antitrust here in the United States, but it is certainly actionable by the hyperactive filter of the EU. Right. And it's certainly addressable by litigation by a group of startups should they choose to do it here in the United States. Yeah. If a group of 20 startups who have used Facebook Connect, then been kicked off of Facebook Connect, which we all know many, there's a list out there of those. If somebody got that list of Facebook Connect companies that were murdered by Facebook, and then demanded to see in discovery the internal communications and the data that was taken, this would be actionable, I believe. Yeah. I'm just floating a theory here. Listen, you and I have companies that may wind up selling to Facebook someday. We want to have good relationships with Facebook. I think Facebook is a bad actor. That's what I personally believe. Bad actor for the ecosystem. Right. I think that they are doing exactly what antitrust was designed to prevent, which is stifling innovation and competition.
Well, I do know that House Party was and is innovative, and so I've not seen the article. And given the only interesting thing just on Facebook that Facebook is not in my household for my kids, and so it'll be interesting to see how Facebook goes after the younger generation. But that's another discussion also.
Well, yeah, it does seem to be going down for that group of people.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a Wall Street Journal article, the new copycats, how Facebook squashes competition from startups. You can see it here.
Oh, okay.
Tiny
Right.
house parties, a promising video channel, and they noticed.
Wow.
Yeah. Facebook is being aided by an internal early bird warning system that identifies potential threats according to people familiar with this technology.
As I said, I think that's kind of like Musically was, flagged as like, wow, look at all this activity. So they have a lot.
So here's
of,
the message. If you take Facebook Connect out of your product, is what we all have to tell the entrepreneurial community, and do not participate in any way with Facebook's ad network or Facebook on any level as an entrepreneur. Do not meet with them until you actually want to sell your company. You have multiple offers. You meet with them last maybe to put the best price in or something.
Right.
But I don't think you should ever meet. My advice to every founder is do not meet with a Facebook executive. If they invite you over, do not meet with them. Just say you're not interested or not at this time.
Yeah, it seems like.
And do not use Facebook Connect. If you're using Facebook Connect and if you're next door and you have Facebook Connect, you should rip it out. I was logged into Facebook to Nextdoor with Facebook, and I'm like, is Nextdoor crazy? They're just going to steal it.
Right.
All right, listen, Dave, this has been amazing. We could go for 3 or 4 hours, but you've got to get back to work, and
Yes.
I am bringing up uncomfortable conspiracy theories here at the end of the program, which is what I do sometimes. Because you know what, the way I look at it is at the end, the last 20 minutes of the program, nobody listens, so I can go on my little tirades, and then certain people listen.
Well, I have a compliment. So in closing,
really?
I just have a compliment, Jason.
thank you.
I appreciate all of the work that you do for entrepreneurs with both your launch conference and all of the support that you do. So I wanted to say thank you for standing up and being a voice. I enjoy playing cards with you,
Oh, that's fun.
taking money from you sometimes.
Sometimes. You know what? You're a tight player, and I'm a little wild. Yeah.
But I also just appreciate what you do for the entrepreneurial community. So
I
thank you.
love how he buries the poker dig right in the middle
right,
of that
of course.
incredibly complimentary.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you got to come. I think we're playing tomorrow night. You want to play tomorrow night? I think we have a little game going tomorrow night, but it's down. It's way down. It's too far for you to travel. But
yeah.
maybe we'll have some good wine. Maybe it's worth it. We send you. Maybe if you lose, we'll pay for your Uber back. Maybe.
Wow. That
All
sounds
right.
like a deal.
This might be a good deal. All right, listen, everybody. If you're going to do an early stage round, I put Dave Samuel right at the top of your list of investors to meet with.
Thank you.
He's very easy to get in touch with. He's D Samuel on the Twitter, DSAMUEL. And I'm sure he's Dave at Freestyle.vc. Pitch him when you think you're ready. Use your common sense. You got to approach the investor knowing what stage they invest in.
Yes.
People sending
The blanket emails don't work when I'm like BCC.
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, it's just like delete. So yeah, my advice is really to try to personalize emails. And then actually just one other note is typically the best way is to come in via referral. And so it's really looking at LinkedIn or looking at other ways of people that know me and coming in through a referral.
So blank BCC email equals
Do not-
delete.
Yeah.
Don't ever do that.
Don't do it.
Like when I get a medical device startup that's emailing me, they're like I'm like, first of all, I don't do medical devices. Second, I'm not going to do a technology transfer out of this school I've never heard of
Right.
to do an 8-year clinical trial. Like this, you're talking, you might as well be talking Chinese to me. I can't understand a word of this.
Yeah.
Like, you should know that. Just look at my portfolio or listen to one episode or read my book. I mean, any of those things. I mean, certainly read the book. But then second, like, if you come in through a referral,
That's the best way.
and if you are not willing to quit your job to start the company in a way you've DQ'd yourself from being a serious founder, like Elon Musk is not staying at a job until it's safe enough to start his next company. Like, it's just not how it works. Even a young Elon Musk would not do that. And then the same thing with this DQing yourself by not being able to find someone on LinkedIn or going and taking the long game and saying, well, we talked about Patreon today. We talked about Intercom. We talked about Airtable, WAG. If you used WAG, here's an easy, perfect example. Use WAG for 2 months or 2 weeks or 2 days and then send Dave an email.
Yeah.
Loved you. And this is a direct email.
Personalized email, yes.
That's the personalized one.
Yeah.
I used WAG. What an amazing product. I mean, and we obviously use Intercom. So I love 2 of the products. I think you'd love what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Because we share this DNA with those 2 products, which
Yes.
is customer first, and amazing design. All of a sudden, you're reading that email.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
And I just came up with that just spitballing here off the top of my head.
It's a great idea, Jason.
Let alone reaching out to the CEO of WAG or the founder or of Intercom and saying, hey, I would love to get coffee with you and explain to my idea, or I love your product, wanted to let you know that, here's what I'm working on. And somehow getting them to forward you on.
Yes.
What is that worth? Like 10x a cold email?
Yes, definitely.
I'd
I mean,
say
the
it's 10x.
referral bumps it way up.
Yeah, right now, the way I take it is if somebody's referring it and they're investing in it, I just like when you send something or somebody like one of our peers, it's like you're
Right.
investing and you're referring. I just CC my assistant. Let's have coffee.
Right. Yeah.
F it. It's like why am I even not drafting off of your hard work in that case, right? That's
Right.
how people should look at it. If
Yeah.
Jason's writing a check, Dave's going to say, he did some hard work here. He's got conviction, and vice versa.
Right.
All right, listen. As I said, Dave is a tremendous, tremendous investor, and so actually, so is his partner Josh. Go ahead and visit Freestyle.vc. Freestyle.vc. Where'd you get the freestyle from? How'd you come up with that name?
That was interesting. Josh had the creative moment with that, and it really has been fun because we like to do things out of the box. We like to do it our own way, and so that's freestyle.
Love it. All right. Thanks again, Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie, and all of the sponsors and partners who make this show possible. You can help the show by going to iTunes, writing a review, a detailed review about how this show has helped you on your entrepreneurial journey. Be candid. If you don't like the show, of course, email me, Jason@Calacanis, and we'll try to do better. But if you think it's a 4 or 5 star type situation, go ahead and write that review. Launch Scale is coming up. LaunchScale.net. It's one of our conferences. 2 days. We teach you how to grow your company from founders who have successfully grown their companies. And Angel the Book. AngelTheBook.com. Go ahead and buy the book. We've just broken 200 reviews. Critical moment. 94% of those, 93% of them are 5-star reviews. So for those folks who read the book and took the time to write a review, it really, really means a lot to me on a personal basis because I put my heart and soul into the book and I want to write another one. And if I get to, say, 500 of those reviews at the same kind of 90% 5-star, it's a no-brainer for HarperCollins to write another check for me to write the next follow-up book. All right, we'll see you all next time on This Week in Startups. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good job, man. That was
Thanks,
a great
Jason.
episode.